Let's keep reviewing the information here. So we have medulla oblongata. What is that? What did we talk about with medulla and the midbrain and pons? Well, we said that the midbrain, pons, and medulla were what we call the brainstem. So for simplicity, it looks like a little guy, right? So there's a change in direction for the fibers. The midbrain has cranial nerves 3 and 4. The pons has cranial nerves 5, 6, 7, 8. The medulla has cranial nerves 9, 10, 11, and 12. And what are we missing? Well, cranial nerves 1 and 2. So there's 12 pairs of cranial nerves. Cranial nerves 1 and 2 are extensions off the big brain, right? And these guys, these three here, are parts of the brainstem. And what is the brainstem for? Well, it's for all your vital functions. The medulla oblongata has cardiovascular centers, it has respiratory centers, and we're going to play a little game so you guys can remember this easier. So when you hit 21, right, anybody that's under 21, you can't understand a word that I'm saying right now. But you're 21 and older, right? And so your first alcoholic beverage is a shot. It's a 151 proof shot. And so you take the shot, you swallow, you cough, and then you vomit. That was disgusting. So I have swallowing centers. How do we know that? Well, there's cranial nerves that are associated with that. We haven't touched on the cranial nerves, but we'll come back to it. 9 and 10 are associated with gag reflex. So yeah, swallowing. And then we have coughing. Coughing centers, similar notion, just associated with diaphragm and this whole, don't worry too much about it. So we swallowed, then we cough, and then we vomit, right? So swallowing centers, coughing centers, vomiting centers. I'm just going to write the word vomit. Wow, what is the brainstem for? We said it was a vital function. So there's an example of a child. She was born without a brain, so they call it anencephaly. But what she did have was she had a brainstem. And she might have had a little bit, a portion a little bit above that, the diencephalon, the thalamus, the hypothalamus. But she didn't have the cerebrum. It was underdeveloped or completely gone. And so she survived for 3 years. She ended up passing away at 3 years old. So this whole time that she's alive, she was able to eat. She was able to swallow. She was able to digest it, and then it goes through the whole GI tract and poop it all out. So physically, all the necessities for living were there. When you lose your cerebral hemispheres and then you lose all the lobes inside of the big brain and you don't have frontal lobe, you don't have social context or norm, right? There's no personality there. You don't have temporal lobe. Audition is limited. There's no auditory lobe in order to process information. You don't have occipital lobe for visual reception, right? Visual cortex. You don't have the parietal lobe for sensation, sensory, right? Feelings. And then you also don't have the insula. And the insula is just a landmark for the basal nuclei, which initiate movement. We're simplifying it all the way down to that. So a lot of the responses that you saw, and this was on video, were very basic in necessity. The eating, the gurgling, not too much interaction or response with the mother, at least in terms of something that we saw in the video. So brainstem, necessary for living. What does it look like? Here we go. So here's his hairdo, right? It's green. Here's his shade. So let's try and look at it from the front. So here's his hairdo on the top. This is the midbrain, cranial nerves 3 and 4. Here's his shades. This is the pons 5, 6, 7, 8. Who do we appreciate? Pons, pons, yeah, pons. And then this is the medulla oblongata. It contains the remaining cranial nerves, which are 9, 10, 11, and 12. And why do you not see cranial nerves 1 and 2? Well, technically, this is not an extension off of the midbrain. It's an extension from the brain itself. So cranial nerve 1, sense of smell, is missing from this diagram, and cranial nerve 2 are both extensions off the big brain, also known as the cerebrum. So you guys can take a look at that. Superior colliculi, inferior colliculi. Superior, if you look at your eyes versus your eyes are a little bit higher than your ears, right? So superior colliculi are for sensation of vision, and inferior colliculi are for sensation of hearing. I couldn't even think of the word hearing. So these guys together are 4 bodies. So we call them corpora, body, quadrigemina, which means quad, 4 sides, so 4 bodies. And there are 2 superior, 2 inferior. Superior are for vision, and the inferior are for audition. Here we go, medulla oblongata. You guys can go over that again. We're going to keep it as simple as possible. So we said cardiovascular centers, respiratory centers, swallow, cough, and vomit, cranial nerves 9, 10, 11, and 12. So here we go. Ignore 8. I'm not sure where they put that. There might be a little bit of crossover, but it's typically marked down as 9, 10, 11, 12. So here we go. Get through the fun stuff. So pawns, yay, pawns. 5, 6, 7, 8. Who do we appreciate? Pawns, yay, pawns. Memorize that, know it. And then the reason why you have to know the numbers is because when I teach you the cranial nerves, guess what? You're going to have to know where they originate from on the brainstem. That means midbrain has cranial nerves 3 and 4. When we name them, we're going to go back and I'm going to test you on it all the way back this way. So nervous system is hard, it's challenging, but it's also fun because you make a lot more links. Here we go. Questions, review. What is the thalamus? It's the relay station, right? What is one major function? We said relay. It has way more than that, but we're going to completely just simplify it down to relay station. What is the hypothalamus? So remember we said hypothalamus. In addition to endocrine, we're sticking right now to just the functions for nervous. If I was to integrate and use endocrine, then we would have to increase this. But we're just going to simplify it to S, H, T, T. When somebody is high on pot, they are sleepy. They want to have sex. They're hungry. They're thirsty. And there's temperature regulation associated with the hypothalamus. When we do this for 1 for 2 next semester, we're going to talk about how the hypothalamus controls the pituitary gland. So that's the endocrine function. Right now, this is the general nervous function. Here we go. What nuclei is associated with oxytocin? What nuclei is associated with ADH? So I do have to go over this with you. The hypothalamus has 2 hormones that it secretes, and it actually makes the hormones and it sends it down to what we call the posterior pituitary for storage, for storage and basically release. And these 2 are made inside of the hypothalamus, and the mnemonic that I remember is POSA. So POSA stands for paraventricular nuclei. That means there's a nucleus or a group of cell bodies that are located alongside the ventricles, and it releases or makes oxytocin. There's another one that's above the eye, not the eye, but above the optic nerve, so we call it supraoptic. Okay, that's pretty clear. And it releases ADH, antidiuretic hormone. So in the posterior pituitary, there are 2 hormones that are released from the posterior pituitary, but they're made in the hypothalamus. They are oxytocin and ADH. And to remember what nuclei they come from, just remember, my flat pig is a POSA. My flat pig is a POSA. We didn't get to my flat pig, but when you guys hear it next semester, you'll hopefully make some kind of link and relationship. If not, no worries. What is the epithalamus? So didn't we say that the diencephalon only has 2 things? No, I don't know why they just classify it as diencephalon when there's 3 parts to it. There's the hypothalamus, there's the thalamus, and then there's the epithalamus. The epithalamus, we're only going to remember that it is associated with the pineal gland, and the pineal gland releases something called melatonin, and melatonin is associated with sleep. And here's one fun fact for you guys to remember is melatonin associated with sleep. Where does melatonin come from? Well, there's something called tryptophan. And tryptophan is an amino acid, tryptophan. It's an amino acid that is converted to melatonin, and melatonin is associated with sleep. Well, where does tryptophan come from? We're going to keep it fun. We're going to say turkey, turkey, gobble, gobble. So turkey has lots of tryptophan. It's not the only thing that has tryptophan. Chicken does too. But why is it that we fall asleep when we eat turkey on Thanksgiving? Because we eat so much of it, right? We eat a lot of turkey on Thanksgiving. So the more turkey you eat, the more tryptophan you have available. The more tryptophan you have available, the more likely you are to make melatonin, right? So that's called a Kanak attack. You guys can look up definition. If you're not from Hawaii, a Kanak attack is just you eat food, you pass out. There we go. Everybody else, you guys already know the definition. So what gland is associated with epithalamus? We said it was the pineal gland. What is the function? To release or make melatonin to aid in sleep-wake cycle. What are the parts of the brainstem? Midbrain, pons, medulla. So midbrain, 3, 4. Pons was 5, 6, 7, 8. Who do we appreciate? Pons. Pons. Yay, pons. And then medulla was 9, 10, 11, 12. Where do you find cranial nerves 1 and 2? They're somewhere in the brain, right? We didn't get to that point. What cranial nerves are associated with each of the part of the brainstem? We just went over that.